All right, y'all, welcome back to this week's episode. I'm so excited that Danait is here, and today we are talking about something that isn't talked about a lot in like the small business sphere, which is one of the reasons why I'm really excited to get your wisdom, your knowledge on it. Last year, Danait, you went through renaming your business, and just so much kind of went into that decision. So I'm excited to dig into that specifically, but also just like decision making as a whole. Like, what are some things that we can think through when making such a big decision in our business? But before we do, if you want to tell everybody a little bit about you and your current business, that would be awesome.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me, Kat. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to talk about this because, yes, we don't really talk about renaming our businesses ever. I am a brand strategist, and I run the Asmara agency, which helps entrepreneurs, mainly women entrepreneurs, take their business from just being something that they're hustling on or doing as a side hustle or something like that into something that they can turn into as a legacy that they leave behind for the people who come after them. And so that's really our mission, is to help women create the visions that they are that they're running after and dreaming big about.
I love that. I love that. And so I'm sure then, with that being your mission for your clients, it obviously affects you. Like, you feel it maybe even more and the pressure of that even more with wanting your own business and the agency model that you have to reflect that within, your employees as well as, the clients that you're working with. So I'd love to hear, and I know that people watching would love to hear too, your thought process, and how you went into thinking through renaming your existing business, because you'd been in business for a little while. You'd established yourself under one brand and then decided to rename.
Yeah. So when I started my business, for maybe like the first week, I named it after, like, it was after my name. And then I was like, that doesn't feel right. Because I always knew I kind of wanted to go into more of an agency model. I didn't want to be like the center of the business. I kind of wanted it to be something that would grow to be bigger than me. And so I had named my business Heart and Vine Creative for a really, really long time. And that was in, I did that because I knew that, of course, I was going to do an agency model, but it didn't always like feel 100% like me or what the business was about. It didn't really encompass what I was telling other people to do, which was build from a place of vision and meaning and purpose and all of those things. And so when after I had been in business for about probably 2 years. Yeah, 2 years at that point when I was thinking of it. So, or like a year and a half when I started thinking about transitioning the name. And that was a big, scary decision because I had done, virtual summits. I had done speaking engagements. I had done so many things with that business name, and I had established myself with that business name. I was in groups and communities and things like that. And so thinking about transitioning it to something else, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? Is this the right decision? Am I thinking through this clearly? But I kept feeling that tug and that pull to make that business, to change it to something that was more me, that felt like was connected to my story and who I am, while also having like that broader, bigger vision of what I was hoping it would become. And so, yeah, that was initially the first thought process, was like, okay, this doesn't feel 100% right. It doesn't feel in alignment with where I'm going. But it was so scary because, like I said, I had established my name, and all those things are going through your head of, okay, well, is this going to pan out? Like, am I like shooting myself in the foot by changing the name? And people are like, who is this person? Where did they come from?
Right.
Yeah, those were some of the first initial kind of feelings, fears that were going through my mind as I kind of thought through that.
Yeah. So how long from when you started thinking about it to when you actually did it? Like, what was that process like? Because I feel like we're so quick in our industry and just as people to, like, we get an idea, or at least a lot of us, I shouldn't say everybody, but it's like we get an idea and then, like, boom, okay, now I need to act on it, like, right away. Like, we like get in hustle mode of like, okay, this is what I'm doing, so let me go for it. Did you feel like that with this? Was this something that you sat on longer?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And this is something I sat on longer. The first time I changed my business name, I probably did that within like a month. I was like, okay, we're going to do it. And like right after I started my business, I was like, yeah, cool.
Right.
moving on. With this, because of some of those things I was thinking through, like, okay, I've established myself. I have business accounts with with this business name. Like, I already have all my people. Like, what am I doing with by changing it? Because of that, and just because I wanted to really make sure that it was something I wanted to afford, or I was like, oh, time for a change or time for a spruce up. Like, I didn't want it to be that. I really wanted to know that this was something I really wanted to do. I think I sat on that in so last year was when we changed it. So last year was 2019, right? We don't know what year and time it is anymore. In November of 2018 is when I started thinking about it. So started thinking about it then, working on the rebrand behind the scenes, and we didn't launch it until May. So it was probably about 6 long months of thinking, processing, of asking a ton of questions, reaching out to business friends, being like, this is crazy, reaching out to family members, being like, am I it was 6 long months. So I took my time with this. I really sat with it for a really long time. I wanted to make sure that I was doing it from a place of not only for myself, but for my community, and making sure that they would get it. And was this in service to them ultimately? In service to the clients that I was going to work with in the future? What does this mean for the business in the long term? So I really sat with that and did a lot of journaling, praying, thinking about this decision. And yeah, 6 months, which usually is not how quickly we work in the online space. We're like,
right.
2 weeks.
We have to do it right now. Yeah. That's great. I know, but for something that is such a big decision like that, we need time. Like, we need to process, we need to weigh pros and cons. I love that you mentioned like reaching out to business friends and like mentors that you had in the business space. Like, that's vital to be able to verbally process and like understand, okay, is this the right decision? Have I thought through truly every pro and con like before moving forward?
Yeah, and I think for all of those big decisions, this is so important. I think that that's one of the things in the online space that we feel like we have to always do is move so quickly. Like, we have an idea and we have to like do it immediately, or it's gone, or it's not going to happen. And I think for short-term things, that's fine. When you're like, oh, I just want to create this like pop-up course or something, those things are totally fine. When it's something that's so tied to your vision and you're like, okay, how, if it's something that's going to be a part of your business for years to come, if it's going to be something that is part of like a cornerstone of your business, whether that's a service offering, whether that's a course, whether that's a business name, whatever it is, those big long-term vision things, I think we need to sit on those for a while. I think that it's so vital for your business to not make those quick. And I felt the pressure of like, oh, am I not thinking quickly enough? Am I like taking too long to process? Like,
Right.
like, you need to be fast, you need to be nimble, you need to like, and I was, but it was something that I really wanted to have a reason for doing. I wanted to have like anchor myself to that decision and be so confident that if anyone were to say, oh, that was a stupid decision, like, I wanted to be the person who could say like, nope, these are my reasons, like, and never, and not feel, because when someone says something like that to you, you're like, oh my gosh, are they right? Did I make? And I didn't want to second guess myself like that in something that was so tied to my bigger vision. So I think that when we're doing something like that, I think it's so important to just, and don't worry if everyone's like, oh, this is taking you too long. Like
Right. No, I get it. We are naming our second child, and I'm like resonating with what you're saying about like, somebody out there is gonna think that whatever name we pick is not a good name, but like, I want to know that like I feel confident in this name decision. So yes, I am like 100% resonating with that right now in the current state of our life. Yeah.
I completely get that. And our businesses can kind of sometimes be like our little babies that we're like, oh, please don't break. And you don't want to, with naming, and especially just from a branding standpoint, you want to make sure that um, you're not harming your brand in any way because it takes so long to, I know branding is such like a quick term in the online space where we think it's like a logo goes up, and but branding is built in the long term. Like, your brand is built over the course of many years of putting in work, putting in consistent like effort, putting in showing up for that brand promise that you're giving to people all the time over and over. And to change the name means that you're like kind of you're taking away some of that brand equity you've built up. And for me, that was a really big deal. I was like, oh my goodness, like, what am I doing? It's going to be like starting from square one. And it's not, but it can kind of feel like that sometimes because people are like, who is this? We don't know. But we've never followed this account. When did I start following this person? And it takes time for you to build that connection between the stuff you've already established to the new business name or pivot or direction that you're taking your business in.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So let's talk about that then for a minute, like the marketing and I guess more of like the logistical side of it. How was that? Were there things that you look back and you're like, okay, this went really well, like when you officially announced the name change, on Instagram and with your clients, or were there things that you look back and say, man, I should have done this aspect of it better?
Yeah, I think because I waited so long and I thought through all of the things that I needed to do, and so reaching out to previous like clients and our current clients and saying like, hey, this is the pivot we're making. I made sure to give them a ton of time. So
Yeah.
I'm sure I reached out to all of those people like a month before we launched to say like, if you have any questions, like if you want to know how this affects you in any way, especially
Right.
for our ongoing clients, that was important to me to make sure that I was serving those people really well. I feel like it went pretty well announcing it and making all those changes. I think for me, what I would have spent more time on is back end stuff. I think we spent so much time in the thinking and the developing of the brand and moving like all the visual stuff together. Sometimes like some of the documents that we had on the back end, like system stuff. I feel like I could have probably spent a little bit more time because sometimes I would find that I was like sending something to a client and it would have like the old business name on there and I'm like, this is supposed to change. I noticed it too late. It wasn't like a big deal because it's just like at the bottom or something or our old logo, but it was I'm like, goodness, like I just forgot to do that. So just like thinking through all of those pieces is so important because I think the stuff that is outward facing, we do really well because we're like making sure that everyone who we're making sure that nothing goes wrong to the out in the outward our website, all of those things were great. But I think sometimes we forget our own back ends and like, oh, okay, like what could we do to make sure that everything that we need is ready to go once we start rolling this out and this is part of our like every day and we're taking on clients with this new name and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That was interesting navigating that. And I think I would have spent more time on that back end business system stuff.
Right, right. No, that's great. Did you when you announced it publicly, like whether it was beforehand, like the official public launch, like with clients or then publicly, um, did any of your fears or like insecurities come true in that? Or like how, because I'm sure you had, well, first of all, we should talk about like specific fears that you had, but then I'd love to just know, like, did any of those things like come to light? Or were you able to see like, okay, no, I didn't need to be so fearful of this particular thing?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I had so many fears. I was worried that people would think that I was like being flaky by changing my business name, like, oh, that was like she didn't get it right the first time. Like, what's going on over there? Like that was like I thought that people wouldn't think I was like credible or serious enough about my business. So many different fears, like maybe no one would want to work with me anymore because they're like, who is this person? Or not resonate with the new change in direction. And so many of those fears of like how it would negatively impact my business. There were so many of those, or maybe if I had made the wrong decision, like would I regret this later on? Like what would happen a year from now? Would I be like, oh, should have stuck with the other one? So many of those things were my fears. But I went through with it because I knew, like deep down, I was like, no, this is the right decision, even though I was feeling all of those things. And then thinking and looking back, none of those things actually came. None of those things came true. It was in the moment. It was so, it felt so real. And like, that's definitely what's going to happen. Like, this is all going to go away. It's all going to dry up. And then we're just going to be sitting here with a new business name and no business.
No like, clients. Yeah. Yes.
This is the end. But none of that came true. I found that I was more confident showing up with my, with the new pivot. I was so much more confident in my message because it was tied to something that it really meant something to me. And to something that I knew was turning into something else, like over the long term, like that long term, like 5-year vision. I knew that that's where I was going. And so I was so much more confident in how I showed up. I was so much more confident in how I talked about my services to people and how, yeah, just in all of those ways. I think that when we're really confident, and I think a lot of it has to do with how long I spent thinking about it because I was so sure of what I was doing, it was easier to show up more confidently. And I think that we lose a little bit of that when we move so quickly because we're not really sure, 100% sure when we do something. And then we're like, should I have done that? And I think that's what I got to see was, oh, like I'm actually more confident. So none of those things came true because I was able to show up differently, if that makes sense. I was so confident in it that other people were like, oh yeah, okay, cool, we're on board with this. This is awesome. Like that's exciting. And that's what I got to see, that was really awesome. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. You just were able to like really affirm it with yourself. Like, no, this is right. This is exactly what I need to do. And so then you could truly put it out there very boldly, which is awesome.
Yeah.
If someone is watching this and whether they're thinking about like renaming a business or just some big, I love how you mentioned before, like cornerstone aspect of their business, whether it's just even a brand refresh, right? Like visually, like refreshing things, a new website, a new offer. Do you have any specific advice you can give them that helped you when you were going through that 6-month like thought process on the renaming the business that they could apply in their current decision?
Yeah, totally. I think that for me, the things that I anchored myself to were number one is vision. Like if you do not know where you are going, it will be so much harder to make these big decisions in your business because when you know where you're going, it's so easy to be like, no, not for me, and then move on. Or like, oh, I definitely see that being a big part of who we are and who we become. So I think anchoring yourself to that is so important. And then really thinking about how is this in service to the people that you want to serve. I think that was the thing that like I thought about a lot was how does this turn into different offers in the future? How does this turn into a business that employs people? Like how is this in service to all of the people that I will be in contact with through my business? And those two things were the biggest things. And then just of course, like logistical things that we all think about. But I think starting from the place of vision, really thinking about where you're going, where you're headed, why this is important, what the meaning and purposes of this, and then how is this in service to the people you want to serve. And I think that applies to all things, whether that's a brand refresh, a new website, a new offer, if you're like, oh, I'd like to do a live event, or things like that are just like huge things that become cornerstones of your business. Starting from those two places really put you in alignment with where you need to go. And then the rest of it kind of comes because you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This is why I would do this. And when you have those, it becomes very easy to map out the plan and put everything together. We're good at that as business owners. We're like,
right. Yes. Yes. No, but that's so true because it's like thinking about it from our perspective of like, this is my business. So what's my vision? Like we need to have that. But then also we're doing this business to serve other people. So how are we serving them? And will this allow us to continue serving them? So it gives you the two things that you need, your clients and then yourself, like within the decision.
Yep. And once you have those two and you feel really confident in how that will serve you and serve your people, I think it becomes, once I was really certain of that and had thought about that, it became, I technically knocked out the brand, the design and the website in probably the 2 months before we launched. I spent a majority of those 6 months, like 4 months, really digging into my vision, journaling, thinking about what I wanted it to look like 3 to 5 years down the line, what does it mean for my clients, like for other avenues that I might want to start, like other revenue streams that I want, and what does that mean by having like this business? What does that all look like? I spent a lot of time doing that, and then once I had that down, and I was like, okay, yes, love all of this. The and the website came together pretty quickly after that, and I was like, that was I think the fastest part of the process. So don't feel nervous if you're spending a lot of time in the thinking phase. I think that that is so key to spend that time in there because you think of all the things and you give yourself the space in the room to think about everything, think about all the cons of things and give yourself the chance to talk yourself out of something. And if you can't be talked out of it, then you need to pick out.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I love it. If you can't be talked out of it, then it is likely the right decision for you. Just go for it. Oh, that's so good. This has been so awesome tonight. Thank you so much for just sharing about your story, like renaming the business, and then again, just offering like really practical and like heartfelt tips on things that we can be thinking through as business owners when we're making big decisions in our business, like cornerstone decisions, as you put it. I love that. Where can everybody connect with you? I want to make sure, and we'll link everything below, but I want them to know where they can connect with you.
Of course. So I am usually on Instagram at Danait BG, so TANAITBG, and you can find me online at diasporaagency.com. I'm sure Kat will have all of these, especially for you guys. But yeah, I would love to connect and chat with you guys over there.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you again for being here. And if there are any questions, y'all just drop them in the comments. I know that we would love to help you if you're walking through like a big decision in your business or a renaming an existing brand, just like Danait did. She's the expert, not me. But this has been awesome. And I appreciate all of your time. And guys, we will see y'all back next week. So bye.